There's a certain kind of silence in Beverly Hills. It's not peaceful, it's curated, like the lighting in a luxury boutique designed to make wealth feel effortless. You don't just wear a $500,000 Richard Mille in this part of town, you belong in it. But on March 4th, 2021, that illusion shattered. Lunch crowd. El Paseo, outdoor seating. Then gunshots. A crew rolled up in a BMW, masked, armed, fast. 1 minute, a man was sipping Prosecco. The next, he was on the ground, bleeding. His watch. Gone. $500,000 worth of wrist candy snatched in broad daylight. The shooter? Already halfway down Wilshire. The target wasn't random. The violence wasn't reckless. It was precise. Someone had been watching, tracking, waiting. This wasn't just a robbery. It was a statement, a flex. And according to the feds, it led straight to one of Lie's most notorious Crip sets, the Rollin 30's Harlem Crips. Now let's be clear, this isn't some gangland drive-by. This is a different kind of play, strategic, high risk, high reward. And when you jack a six-figure watch in a zip code that funds campaigns, the whole system kicks in fast. Cops came down, feds followed. Within weeks, 3 men were in custody, 2 would take pleas, 1 would vanish into a decade of federal time, and yet the watch, still missing. So what really went down that day? In this breakdown, we'll unpack the timeline of the hit and how the crew pulled it off, who the Rollin 30's Harlem Crips are and how they operate. Why this robbery triggered a federal crackdown and what this case reveals about money, gangs, and how the system responds when the wrong people touch the right kind of wealth, because this wasn't just a flash of violence. It was a message, and the state heard it loud and clear. It was just after p.m. on March 4th, 2021, the kind of afternoon where time slows down in Beverly Hills, sunlight bouncing off parked Bentleys, salads being picked at slowly, and luxury watches glittering on every wrist. El Paseo was packed, outdoor tables filled with people who never expect to be interrupted by reality. Then 3 men in masks stepped into the frame. Security footage captured it. They approached fast, no yelling, no chaos at first. Just purpose. 1 man pulled a gun, their target. A diner wearing a Richard Mille RM November 3rd flyback chronograph. Retail. Around $500,000. In less than 30 seconds, the tone flipped. The gunman pointed the weapon directly at the man's chest, demanded the watch, but someone nearby resisted, maybe instinct, maybe panic. In that struggle, a shot went off. A woman sitting a few feet away was hit in the leg. Screams, scramble. The crew grabbed the watch and sprinted toward a waiting BMW. By the time police arrived, they were gone, disappeared into the city grid, but they didn't disappear quietly. Beverly Hills PD pulled surveillance from every corner of the block. They noticed something. The same BMW had circled the area 3 times earlier. That day, they ran the plates, fake, but cell towers told another story. A burner phone pinged the same sector minutes before the hit and again near South LA an hour later. Then came the DNA, a trace left on the jacket of the woman who'd been shot. It matched Malik Lamont Powell, already known to gang intel, with suspected ties to the Rollin 30's Harlem Crips. More phone data led to Kai McGee and Marquise Garden. By May, the FBI had built their case. The crew had cast El Paseo days before the robbery. They picked a target, they planned the exit, they left behind just enough to get caught, the Richard Mille. Never recovered, probably fenced within hours, cleaned and flipped through channels that don't ask questions. But the signal was clear. This wasn't an amateur move. It was fast, calculated, and for better or worse, it worked. The Rollin 30's Harlem Crips don't make headlines every year. That's the point. They're not loud, they're not messy, they're institutional. You hear Crips and think blue rags, corner beef, maybe some rap lyrics. But the Rollin 30's are different. This is a set that's been around since the late 1960s, older than most of the cops chasing them. Their roots go deep into South LA and stretch far beyond, with members and affiliates showing up in New York, in Belize, even in the Navy. And don't let the 30's confuse you. They're not 30 guys, they're a network. Rough estimates put their numbers between 700 and 1,000, multi-generational, structured, experienced, one of the more feared and respected Crip sets on the West Coast. They've got history, drug trafficking, gun running, assaults, homicides, you name it. But in recent years, they've shifted, less about turf, more about opportunity. Credit card scams, identity theft, black market reselling. Crews under the Rollin 30's umbrella are adapting. The streets changed, they did too. And the feds know it. These guys were on the radar before El Paseo. They were part of Operation Thumbs Down, a multi-year FBI LAPD joint top that targeted gang violence and weapons trafficking across South La. So when Beverly Hills PD saw the name Rollin 30's in connection to a $500,000 armed robbery, they didn't treat it like a street crime, they treated it like enterprise. Because this wasn't a bunch of randoms. This was a sanctioned move. A crew with affiliations, roles, and discipline. Someone picked the target, someone planned the route, someone got the gun, and someone was waiting to flip the watch before it ever made the news. Gang structures like this aren't chaotic, they're decentralized, but not disorganized. You've got shooters, you've got fences, you've got people whose names never make it into court docs, but whose fingerprints are all over the operation. And when the system sees that level of sophistication, they stop thinking gang. They start thinking Rico. You rob a corner store in South LA? It barely makes the scanner. You pull off a $500,000 armed hit at a white linen restaurant in Beverly Hills? That's a different ballgame. That's politics. The moment this case broke, it wasn't just about 3 suspects and a watch, it became a litmus test for every tough on crime platform in California. Beverly Hills PD knew they couldn't handle this alone. They brought in the FBI within days. Why? Because public pressure wasn't just high, it was expensive. El Pastillo isn't some back alley bistro, it's a power lunch spot. Celebrities, CEOs, foreign investors, all regulars. This hit didn't just target wealth, it embarrassed it. And in a place like Beverly Hills, you don't get away with that. So the feds moved fast. Within weeks, Dodge prosecutors were filing Hobbs Act charges interference. With interstate commerce by robbery, it's the federal version of we're making an example out of you. Surveillance tech got fast-tracked, license plate readers were poured over, cell tower dumps were pulled, and behind the scenes, lawmakers used the case to push agenda points. LAPD boosted its gang enforcement unit, city councils approved more funding for predictive policing software, politicians lined up to say they were sending a message, but here's the twist, that urgency. It wasn't about stopping violence, it was about protecting capital. You think the feds would have jumped in that quick if this happened at a food truck in Watts? Let's call it what it is, selective justice. This robbery exposed a truth nobody likes to say out loud. Law enforcement scales its response based on who the victim is, not just what the crime was. $500,000 stolen from someone rich gets you joint task forces and federal charges. That same amount stolen in smaller hits across poor communities. Paperwork and backlog, and when gang activity touches luxury property, suddenly it's not just a local problem, it's a threat to the American brand, so they throw the book, not just to punish but to reassure. Let's get real. A Richard Mille isn't just a watch, it's a $500,000 status signal strapped to your wrist, louder than a Lambo, more liquid than real estate, and in Beverly Hills, it blends in, but to someone from South LA, it sticks out like a diamond on concrete. To the Rollin 30's crew, this wasn't just a heist, it was math, split between 3 or 4 people, even a fraction of that watch's resale value is life-changing. Rent for months, debt erased, a chance to flex, eat, or just breathe. These aren't excuses, they're the economic incentives, baked into inequality. And that's the part nobody talks about. The hit at El Pastillo wasn't driven by impulse, it was strategy. The crew didn't pick a random chain store, they chose a place with soft security and high reward. They didn't want bodies, they wanted product, in and out, no names, fast fence. That's enterprise thinking, and it's not just about watches, it's about what gets protected and what doesn't. The neighborhoods these guys came from, they don't have patrol cars on standby or cameras on every block, but try robbing where the rich eat lunch. Suddenly there's drone footage, ATF task forces, and federal prosecutors quoting interstate commerce laws. Meanwhile, the woman who got shot, she survived. The victim lost his watch, but not his status, not his access, not his options. The shooters. Gone for a decade, the watch. Gone for good, but the system? Oh, it keeps humming. El Pastillo didn't shut down. Beverly Hills didn't crumble, and South LA didn't get any safer. Because here's the dark irony. Crime like this doesn't break the system. It reveals what the system values. Once the gunfire stopped and the footage went viral, the robbery stopped being just a crime. It became a campaign tool. Conservative media jumped on it immediately. Gangs running wild in Democrat-run cities. Tucker-style talking points on repeat. Proof that California was soft, that defund the police movements had gone too far. Never mind that Beverly Hills never defunded anything and their PD had a bigger budget than entire counties. But liberals didn't push back hard either. In fact, they leaned in just with different language. Community safety, precision policing, gun violence prevention, what they really meant. More tech, more surveillance, more quiet funding for the same enforcement playbook. It became bipartisan theater. Elected officials posed with police at press conferences. New gang task force budgets rolled out days after the arrests, civilian oversight boards. Silent, restorative justice groups. Sidelined, because let's be honest, there's no political downside to cracking down on gang crime when the victims are rich and the suspects are poor and black, and that's what this turned into. Optics over outcomes. The crew who pulled the hit. They were locked up quick, but the conditions that produced them. Still untouched, still brewing, still ignored. Nobody ran on fixing South LA's job market. Nobody held hearings on the resale market for stolen luxury goods. Nobody asked why kids with no health care could map a robbery better than half the city's tech startups. Instead, they packaged fear into policy, they sold it as safety, and they used this case not to prevent the next one, but to prove they were in control, even when they weren't. By now you know this wasn't just about a watch. The Rollin 30's didn't pull off that $500,000 hit because they were chaotic or dumb. They did it because it made sense economically, tactically, even psychologically. You hit where the money is, you move fast, you flip the product, and if the system's already rigged against you, you might take that risk. The robbery was the symptom, not the disease. The system reacted exactly how it was designed to: swift, brutal, selective. Because the truth is, crime against the rich is a red line. That's when the real police show up. That's when the feds knock. That's when the headlines write themselves. And that's when both political parties stop arguing and start funding. But what happens after the case is closed? The watch is gone, the crew is gone, the headlines fade, but South LA is still broke, still boxed in, still policed harder than it's protected. And the next young kid who sees a Richard Mille on a wrist across town might start doing the same math, because in this country, opportunity isn't evenly distributed, but punishment, that's always right on time. This case wasn't about gang culture, it was about American culture, and what we're willing to overlook until someone crosses into the wrong neighborhood and reminds us that inequality doesn't stay put. So yeah, 500,000 vanished in 30 seconds, but the real theft happened long before that crew showed up.